Good evening, thanks for being there. First tonight, investigators are warning that people left struggling financially after lockdown could be at risk from new loan shark tactics. They say illegal lenders are increasingly using social media platforms to pose as friendly faces and communicate with their victims. In Bradford, the local credit union is trying to reach people it thinks might be vulnerable and has launched a new emergency loan scheme to offer people an alternative. Corinne Wheatley reports.
He'd make all sorts of threats to me, break my legs, break my arms. The depression was enough for me not to want to live anymore.
Trapped by a debt that's never repaid. Thousands report being caught in the grip of loan sharks each year. And last year, around 1 in 3 said they were on the brink of suicide. Now, with the pandemic leaving many people struggling financially, the experts are seeing worrying signs. Illegal lenders are increasingly using social media and WhatsApp to get closer to their victims. In this real-life exchange, a woman desperate for £150 sends over her bank details to a loan shark's associates. When she can't make the repayments, she's told the loan shark, Danny, is planning to send some lads round and take some of her valuables in lieu of payment.
Anecdotally, we have had people who've come forward and said their loan shark, who'd been perfectly nice to them, had not been very nice when they'd mentioned they'd been furloughed.
Investigators are worried about the impact of COVID.
You know, one of the issues we have with loan sharks is people think they're their friend or a friend of a friend or just someone in the community who's helping them out. They have no idea this is a criminal. So I think because it's done through social media, by the nature of which people think it's friendly, it's, you know, informal, people don't realise you need to be authorised to lend money in this way.
In Bradford, the credit union is trying to reach some of the most vulnerable before illegal lenders do. They're sending out financial information in these activity packs made by the organisation Artworks. Mum of 4 Michelle is now a regular saver with the credit union, but she remembers all too well the burden of financial uncertainty.
Day in, day out, worry and anxiety of what if they're ruining the shoes at school? They need a new pair. What if the washing machine breaks down? There isn't a week goes by and we don't get leaflets through the door offering instant cash. And if you are really financially struggling and that comes through the door, you're just going to ring that number. No credit checks, no worries. And if you are that desperate, you just want some money to put the food on the table. And people fall foul to that.
To help, the credit union is launching a new emergency loan scheme at 0% interest, aimed at anyone in Bradford who's been furloughed or made redundant due to COVID.
And we realise that people are struggling financially and they just need a small leg up. They need a small amount of money to just get them back on their feet while they're waiting for their benefits to come through or they're waiting for that job to start. And that's really the stopgap that we're trying to achieve.
The only people that knew what I was doing was myself and the loan sharks.
A committee of MPs has raised concerns about illegal lending online. They've called for more research and a review of prison sentences. Investigators say it could be some time before we know the extent of the problem through the pandemic. Their advice is to speak up as soon as possible. Corinne Wheatley, BBC Look North, Bradford.
Well, a little earlier on, I spoke to Kath Williams, who you saw in Corinne's report, and asked her how concerned should we be about the tactics that loan sharks are using at the moment.
I think it's just another way for loan sharks to get to people, really. I think the worrying thing from our point of view is with social media, you can get into people's heads and into people's lives at any time of day or night. So if your loan shark's based in the workplace or if your loan shark collects from your house on a Friday, you probably only see them for a limited amount of time during the week. Whereas if you are an influencer on social media, if you're being approached by different people through different outlets, it's a way they can get to you anytime, night or day. And that's really worrying in terms of the accessibility they give to people for these loans, but also in terms of the bullying they can then do to try and follow those up.
Yes, you talk about intimidation. A few years ago, the government clamped down on door-to-door loan shark lending. Has this problem simply moved online now into a social media platform?
I think the illegal lending still happens face to face. It still happens online. It happens anywhere and everywhere, as we discover. So we have loan sharks, illegal money lenders based in people's workplaces. We have them in any social setting you can imagine, be it a pub, a social club, anything like that. We have loan sharks who use WhatsApp, so they're not actually living in the same area as their victims. So you get a loan shark in Rotherham, for example, with victims in Dorset and London and the North East, because all the lending, all the communication and everything is done via social media. So I think what the internet has done and what social media has done, it's given loan sharks the ability to reach a wider audience. In the old days, if you like, it was very much someone on an estate who lent to someone people within, say, a 2-mile radius, whereas nowadays they've got access to people far and wide.
Do we need harsher deterrents, and are the penalties stiff enough for those who get caught illegally lending money to people?
We had a case that got to the Court of Appeal a couple of years ago, which said that loan sharks should get custodial sentences. And I think that's quite an important deterrent. But I think the bigger one from our point of view sometimes is that we take away their proceeds of crime. So as well as prosecuting them for illegal lending and money laundering and any other offences that they happen to commit, be it blackmail or affray or assault or anything else, at the same time as that, we look at their finances. And with proceeds of crime, it's a brilliant piece of legislation, because instead of us having to prove they've got that money illegally, they have to prove they got it legally. And if they can't do that, we can take it off them with the help of the courts. And I think actually that's how you stop loan sharks, because that removes their power base. They don't have the capital there to lend anymore. And as well, I think the fact that they are being prosecuted shows the community that they're not untouchable.
And what about the victims in all this? Is there enough support out there for them?
I think there's a fabulous amount of support for victims who come forward and victims who engage. So when people call our hotline, they get a one-to-one support officer for as long as they need it. And we look at that holistically. We look at everything about their lives and see where we can help them. We look at their housing, their mental health, their employment. We take them basically from the place they're at with the loan shark, and we try and put them back in a better position where they would have been had Mr. Loan Shark or Mrs. Loan Shark come along in the first place. I think the problem is for people who aren't engaging, for people who are too scared, for people who don't know this is a criminal offence, for people who aren't aware of the support that's available. And that's, I think, when people can get in trouble.
OK, Kath Williams, many thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Next this evening, the government's new quarantine rules for